The dress was on the bed. Nova James stood in front of her bathroom mirror in a towel and looked at it through the doorway. Deep burgundy, fitted, the kind of dress that required a decision, and thought about texting Priya to cancel. She'd been thinking about it for 40 minutes. Not because anything was wrong, exactly. Nothing was wrong. That was almost the problem. Her Saturday had been quietly, completely fine. Coffee at the window, a long walk, the particular soft contentment of a day that asked nothing of her. And now she was supposed to put on the burgundy dress and sit across from a stranger in a restaurant and perform the version of herself that was available for new people. She was tired of being available for new people. She picked up her phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. Priya will never let me hear the end of it, she thought. She has been planning this for 3 weeks. She used the word perfect 4 times in one text message, and she is not a person who repeats herself. Nova looked at the dress. The dress looked back with the passive authority of a decision already made. She put it on. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't need to try. No sign above the door, just a number, brushed brass on dark stone. The kind of establishment that existed in the knowledge that the people who needed to find it already knew where it was. Inside, warm light, the low register of expensive acoustics, white tablecloths that had never once been the wrong kind of white. Nova arrived 7 minutes late, deliberately, because she had a lifelong policy against being the first person to a blind date, a policy rooted in the specific vulnerability of sitting alone at a table waiting to be assessed, and gave Priya's reservation name to the host and was led to a table in the corner, which was empty. She sat down. She looked at the menu without reading it. She thought about the fact that she had almost canceled and had not canceled and was now sitting alone at a table in a restaurant that didn't have a sign waiting for a man she had never seen, whose name she had been given by Priya in a voice memo that was 47 seconds long and contained the phrase, "Just trust me twice." She ordered water. She looked at the door. He walked in at 7:14. She knew it was him before the host turned to lead him over, not because she'd been given a description, because she hadn't. Priya had been aggressively withholding on the visual details, but because of the way the room responded to him. Not loudly. Nothing so obvious as heads turning or conversations pausing. Just a subtle, atmospheric shift, the way a room adjusts its temperature when something significant enters it. He was tall, dark-haired, almost black, cut close at the sides and slightly longer on top, the kind of cut that looked effortless because someone very skilled had made it so. His jaw was angular and clean. He wore a deep charcoal suit with a burgundy shirt, no tie, collar open at the throat, and he moved through the restaurant with the particular quality of a man who had never once needed to find the right speed in a room because every room adjusted to his. He saw her. He stopped. Not physically, he didn't stop walking, but something in him stilled, briefly and completely, the way still water stills when something disturbs its surface. Then it was gone, managed, and he was moving toward her table with the composed certainty of a man who had been surprised and was not going to let that be visible. She understood this. She was doing the same thing. Priya, she thought, with a complexity of emotion that included gratitude and irritation and something that didn't have a name yet. You absolute menace. He reached the table. He looked at her, directly, fully, without the social performance of pretending not to look, and his eyes were a shade she hadn't prepared herself for, dark amber, almost gold, the color of something lit from inside. They were warm and sharp simultaneously, the kind of eyes that notice things and file them without telling you. "Nova James," he said. Not a question. His voice was low and unhurried, the kind that didn't need a room's help to be heard. "Rafferty Stone," she said. "The beat." "You knew who I was," he said. "Priya described you adequately," she said. "She described me as..." He paused. "How did she describe me?" Nova looked at him across the white tablecloth. "She said you were someone worth putting the dress on for," she said. The amber eyes. Something moved through them, quick and genuine, the thing that happens before the management catches it. He sat down. "She told me," he said, settling into the chair with the ease of a man who had never been uncomfortable in his body, "that you were the most interesting person she'd ever met and that you'd probably try to cancel." Nova picked up her water glass. "I almost did," she said. "What stopped you?" She looked at him. At the dark hair and the amber eyes and the burgundy shirt that was, she noted with a private, specific irritation, the same color as her dress, which meant Priya had coordinated this deliberately and with the focused intention of someone who considered herself an artist. "The dress," she said. "It's non-negotiable once it's on." Rafferty Stone looked at her for a moment. Then the corner of his mouth moved, not a full smile, not yet, something more considered and therefore more interesting. "I'm glad you kept it on," he said. The restaurant moved around them in its quiet, expensive choreography. Nova James, who had almost cancelled, who had stood in a towel thinking about texting Priya, who had put on a dress because it had looked at her with the authority of a decision already made, picked up her menu, and decided, in the particular quiet way of someone whose instincts had a decent track record, that she was going to be here for a while. The thing about Rafferty Stone that the business profiles never captured, and there were many profiles, Nova would later discover, each one more impressed with itself than the last, was that he listened like it cost him nothing. Not the performative listening of men who were waiting for their turn to speak. Not the distracted, one eye on the room listening of men who needed to know if anyone more important had entered. Just genuine, unhurried attention, the kind that made you feel, slightly uncomfortably, like the most interesting thing in a very well-appointed room. She noticed this 12 minutes into the date. She found it suspicious. They had ordered, she, the sea base, he, the lamb, chosen without consulting the menu for more than 10 seconds, which was either confidence or habit, and she hadn't decided which yet, and the conversation had found its footing in the easy, exploratory way of two people who were both, it turned out, better at talking than they'd expected to be with a stranger. "What do you do?" he asked. The standard question, but he asked it the way you ask something you actually want to know, not something you're obligated to ask before you can talk about yourself. "I'm an architect," she said. "Residential, mostly. I design spaces for people to live in." "What does that mean to you?" he said. "Beyond the technical." She looked at him. Most people, when she said architect, said something about buildings they liked or asked if she'd seen a particular structure or made a joke about load-bearing walls. They moved to the thing, not the person holding the thing. "It means," she said carefully, "that I spend a lot of time thinking about how spaces make people feel. Not how they look, how they feel. The way a room with the right ceiling height makes you breathe differently. The way a window placed correctly can make a small space feel like it has no edges." She paused. "I think home is something people carry inside them, and my job is to build the outside version of it. To match the interior." Rafferty was quiet for a moment. "You've been doing this your whole career?" he said. 8 years, she said. "I had a firm with a partner for 5 of them. I went independent 3 years ago." "Why?" She picked up her wine glass. "Because my partner had a different definition of what we were building." He let this sit without pushing on it, which was, she noted, a rare and specific skill. "What about you?" she said. "I build things too," he said. "Less poetically." "What kind of things?" "Companies, mostly," he said. "I find ones that are structurally sound but poorly managed and I correct them." "Correct them," she repeated, in the tone of someone noting a word choice. "Redirect them," he said, "toward what they were trying to be." She looked at him. "That's not less poetic," she said. "That's the same thing." The amber eyes. That thing again. The quick, genuine movement beneath the composure, the thing that happened before the management arrived. "Maybe," he said. She learned him in the way you learn someone over a first dinner when both of you have stopped pretending it's going badly, in pieces, in the gaps between the pieces, in what was said and what was chosen not to be. He had grown up in Vermont. Not wealthy, he said this plainly, without the reverse snobbery of people who needed you to know they were self-made. His father had worked in construction. His mother had taught piano. He had been, by his own account, a deeply serious child who had read too much and talked too little and had a habit of reorganizing things that weren't his to reorganize. "That hasn't changed," Nova said. He looked at her. "Which part?" "The reorganizing things," she said. "You just have a larger operating range now."
If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more amazing love stories. All right, back to the story.
Something happened at the corner of his mouth. You've been paying attention. I'm an architect, she said. I read structures. And what structure are you reading? He said. Evenly. Not defensive, genuinely asking. She looked at him across the white tablecloth. At the charcoal suit and the open collar and the amber eyes that were doing their quiet, unhurried filing of everything she offered. Someone who learned early, she said carefully, that the world responded better to competence than to need. So you got very good at competence. She paused. And somewhere in the process you got a little far from the need part. The table was quiet. Not uncomfortably, but with the specific weight of something true landing in a space that hadn't expected it. Rafferty looked at her for a long moment. Priya said you were direct, he said. Priya says a lot of things, Nova said. She wasn't wrong about any of them, he said. Quietly. Not as flattery, as a finding. She had not told him about Dominic yet. This was deliberate. First dates were not the place for Dominic. For the 5 years and the shared firm and the slow, structural dissolution of something she'd built her professional identity inside of, only to find one morning that the identity had been mostly his and she had been the one doing the structural work. She had left, rebuilt. 3 years of her own practice, her own clients, her own name on the door. She was fine. She was genuinely, substantially fine. But there was a specific wariness she carried now. A structural assessment she applied to men who were too competent, too certain, too comfortable in rooms that adjusted to them, that she had not been able to fully retire, no matter how fine she was. Rafferty Stone was all of those things. This was the information she was sitting with over the sea base. What she didn't know, what was existing on the other side of the white tablecloth, behind the amber eyes and the unhurried listening, was that Rafferty Stone had almost cancelled too. Not for the same reasons. He had cancelled the last 3 setups Priya had attempted, politely, efficiently, with the particular apologetic confidence of a man who had learned to manage other people's expectations of his personal life the way he managed quarterly projections. He was good at his life. His life was full and structured and required very little that wasn't already in it. He had agreed to this one because Priya had said, with unusual specificity, she designs the outside of what people carry inside. I think you'll understand each other. He hadn't been able to identify why that sentence had gotten through when the others hadn't. He was beginning to understand. At 9:15, the restaurant had thinned to its late evening population, the lingerers, the ones for whom the meal had become secondary to the company, and their table had accumulated the comfortable debris of a dinner that had run long without either of them engineering it. A second bottle of wine, a shared dessert that had arrived because the waiter had suggested it and neither of them had objected. A conversation that had covered architecture and acquisition and Vermont winters and the specific sound of a city at 4 in the morning when you've been working too late and the streets have stopped pretending to be busy. You like the city at 4 a.m., she said. I like it when it's honest, he said. During the day it performs. At 4 it's just itself. She looked at him. You feel that way about people too, she said. Not an accusation. An observation. He held her gaze. Don't you? She thought about Dominic. About the firm. About 5 years of a partnership that had performed beautifully in public and dissolved privately over a disagreement about whose vision was whose. Yes, she said. I do. Something passed between them, not romantic, not yet, but the quieter thing that precedes it, recognition. The specific rare acknowledgement of 2 people who have found, unexpectedly, the same room inside a conversation. It's late, she said. He looked at the restaurant, the thin tables, the lowered lights. Yes, he said. Neither of them moved. Nova, he said. She looked at him. I'd like to do this again, he said. Without preamble, without the cushioning language of people who are afraid of a direct no. Just the statement, offered plainly, because he was a man who had gotten very good at saying exactly what he meant in boardrooms and had apparently decided to apply the same policy here. She looked at him for a moment. At the amber eyes that had been paying full attention for 2 hours without a single lapse. At the man who had said toward what they were trying to be and had not flinched when she told him a true thing about himself 12 minutes into knowing her. "I'd like that too," she said. The corner of his mouth. The full thing this time, not the consideration of a smile but the actual one, unhurried and genuine, slightly asymmetric, the kind that looked like it didn't happen often enough. She stored it. Against her better judgment and with full awareness of what she was doing, she stored it. Priya called at 8 a.m. the next morning. Nova was on her second coffee, sitting cross-legged on her window seat with a project brief she wasn't reading, and she answered on the first ring because waiting would have communicated more than she was prepared to communicate at 8 a.m. on a Sunday. "Well," Priya said. "Good morning," Nova said. "Don't good morning me. How was it?" Nova looked at the project brief. At the city through the window. At the coffee in her hand. "It was fine," she said. Silence on Priya's end. The specific, loaded silence of someone who had coordinated matching outfit colors and used the word perfect 4 times and was not going to accept fine as a data point. "Nova Imara James," Priya said. Nova stopped. Started again. "He's interesting." "Interesting," Priya repeated, in the tone of someone being handed a single grape when they'd expected a vineyard. "He listened," Nova said. "Actually listened. The whole time." Another silence. Different quality. "And?" Priya said softly. Nova looked at the city. "And I'd like to see him again," she said. Simply. The way you say true things when it's 8 a.m. and you haven't fully assembled your defenses yet. Priya made a sound that was equal parts vindication and genuine warmth. "I know," she said. "You don't know anything," Nova said. "I knew enough to coordinate the colors," Priya said and hung up. She saw him 4 days later. Not planned, or not planned by her, which turned out to be a distinction without a difference when Priya was involved. She was on site at a residential project in Tribeca, a full-floor renovation, her largest current commission, a couple who had bought the space for its bones and needed someone to understand what the bones were saying. She was in the middle of explaining ceiling height options to the contractor when her phone buzzed with a text from an unsaved number. "Priya tells me you're working in Tribeca today. I have a meeting 2 blocks away at noon. Coffee after if you're free." She read it twice. She was aware of 2 things simultaneously, that Priya had given him her number without asking, which was an act of aggressive interference she would address later, and that her first response, immediate, physical, before the analytical part of her brain had a chance to weigh in, had been yes. She typed, "The place on Harrison with the green door. 1 o'clock. She put her phone away. She went back to the ceiling height conversation. She did not think about amber eyes for the remaining 40 minutes of the site visit. This was not entirely true. He was already there when she arrived. This she noted, filed it, added it to the structural assessment she was trying, with mixed success, not to conduct. He had arrived first, which meant he had left his meeting early, or his meeting had ended early, or he had calculated the timing and built-in margin. Any of those 3 options told her something. He was at a corner table, smaller than the restaurant, no white tablecloth, the honest democracy of a good coffee shop, in a dark navy jacket over a white shirt, no tie, his dark hair slightly less curated than Friday, and he looked, in the daylight, different from the restaurant version of himself. Better was the word that arrived before she could select a more neutral one. Himself. The restaurant had been a performance space, however good the performance. This was just a Tuesday afternoon and a corner table and a man who had left a meeting early to have coffee with her. "You're on time," he said when she sat down. "I'm always on time," she said. "I know," he said. "Priya mentioned it." "Priya," Nova said, with the measured warmth of someone setting a name down carefully before deciding what to do with it, "has mentioned a great deal." "She has," he agreed. Most of it was accurate. Which part wasn't? He looked at her over his coffee cup. "She said you'd be guarded," he said. "That it would take time." Nova looked back at him. "And?" "You're not guarded," he said. "You're precise. There's a difference." She was quiet for a moment. "Most people can't tell the difference," she said. "Most people aren't looking for it," he said. They stayed for 2 hours. The coffee shop did its midday thing around them, the laptop workers and the stroller brigade and the couple in the window having a quiet disagreement about something that had started before they arrived, and Nova and Rafferty sat in their corner and talked about the Tribeca project, which led to a conversation about what buildings owe the people inside them, which led somehow to a conversation about his mother's piano teaching and the specific spatial memory of childhood homes, which led to Nova saying something she hadn't said to anyone in a professional context. I left the firm because my partner started designing for approval, she said. Not for the people living there. For the photograph of it. For what it said about us. She paused. And I realized I'd been letting him, for a long time, because the approval felt like evidence of something. She picked up her cup. It wasn't. Rafferty listened. Not filling the silence after she finished. Just letting it be what it was. What did you design before you left? He said. Your favorite thing. She looked at him. A small house in Hudson. Young family, tight budget. She was pregnant with their second. I had almost nothing to work with. She paused. I put the kitchen window facing east so she'd have morning light while the baby was feeding. I made the ceiling in the children's room 6 inches higher than standard because I wanted them to feel. She stopped. Smiled, slightly. Like the world was bigger than it was. Rafferty was looking at her with an expression she hadn't seen yet in their short inventory of each other. Not the filing expression. Not the composed, attentive one. Something more open. Something that had gotten past the management without being intercepted. That's the one, he said quietly. Which? The one that shows you what someone is made of, he said. The constraint project. Anyone can do the big budget. The tight one tells the truth. She looked at him. He means it, she thought. He's not saying it because it's the right thing to say. He means it the way people mean things they've learned from their own work. Your turn, she said. He thought. A logistics company in Ohio, he said. My second acquisition. 40 employees, 23 years old. The founder had built it from nothing and had no succession plan and was terrified of what selling meant. He paused. I bought it and kept every employee and kept his name on the door. He retired to Michigan and sends me a card every Christmas. Is that typical? She said. Keeping the name? No, he said. Why did you? Because it was his, he said simply. The name was part of the structure. You don't strip a building of the thing that holds it together because it's not your name. She sat with that. He builds around what's already there, she thought. He finds the existing structure and works with it. Same as her. Same exact thing, different material. This was, she recognized with the specific, clear-eyed awareness of someone who had learned not to ignore structural information, a problem. Not because it was bad. Because it was good in a way that was going to require her to update several operating assumptions she'd been relying on for 3 years. The inciting moment arrived at the end of the second hour, sideways the way real moments do. His phone rang. He looked at it. A single glance, the name on the screen, and something changed in his expression. Not dramatically. Just a slight tightening, the kind that happens when something you've been managing has decided to require attention. I have to take this, he said. Go ahead, she said. He stepped outside. She watched him through the window, framed in the green doorway, phone to his ear, the navy jacket and the afternoon light. His free hand in his pocket. His jaw set. Whatever was on the other end of the call was not good news. 3 minutes. He came back in. Sat down. Said nothing for a moment. Everything okay? She said. He looked at his coffee cup. A project I've been working on for 8 months, he said. There's a complication. He paused. The building we acquired for the headquarters renovation. There's a structural issue. The architect we hired missed it. Nova was quiet. What kind of structural issue? She said. Load-bearing elements that aren't. He stopped. Looked at her. You'd understand it better than I can explain it. She held his gaze. Send me the report, she said. He looked at her. I'm not asking for a favor, she said. I'm offering one. Send me the report. I'll tell you in 20 minutes whether it's fixable or catastrophic. The pause. You don't have to. Rafferty, she said. He looked at her. Send the report. He looked at her for one long, specific moment, the amber eyes doing their quiet assessment, and then he took out his phone and sent it. Her tablet was in her bag. She had it out and opened before it arrived, because she was an architect who had not survived 3 years of independent practice by waiting for things to come to her. The report came through. She read it. He watched her read it, watched the specific, focused quality that came over her face when she was working, the way everything that wasn't the problem in front of her simply ceased to exist, and he felt something he hadn't expected to feel on a Tuesday afternoon over coffee. Certain. Not about the structural report. About her. She looked up after 12 minutes. It's fixable, she said. The load-bearing issue is in the northeast corner. Whoever assessed it was looking at the wrong plans, the renovation drawings, not the original construction. The original structure can support what you need. You'll need to reframe the northeast wall and update the foundation assessment, but the bones are sound. She turned the tablet. And here. He leaned forward. She walked him through it, precisely, without condescension, the way she explained things to clients who needed to understand without needing to become architects. And he followed without pretending, asking the right questions, the ones that showed he understood what she was saying and needed only the gaps filled. When she finished, he sat back. You just saved me, he said, approximately 4 months and a significant sum. The bones were sound, she said. You just needed someone to read them correctly. He looked at her. At the tablet. At her hands. At the woman who had sat down for coffee and had, without ceremony, solved a problem that had been on the phone 3 minutes ago. Nova, he said. Yes. I'd like to hire you, he said. For the project. Officially. She looked at him. That would complicate things, she said. What things? She held his gaze for a moment. This, she said, gesturing at the table. At the coffee cups. At the 2 hours that had just passed and the conversation they'd had and the something that had been building in the corner of a coffee shop on a Tuesday in Tribeca. He held her gaze. I know, he said. I'm asking anyway. She looked at him for a long moment. Outside the green door, the city moved in its indifferent afternoon way, taxis and pedestrians and the general motion of a world that didn't pause for two people deciding something in a coffee shop. Send me the full project brief, she said. I'll decide by Friday. He nodded. Friday. She began gathering her things. Nova, he said. She looked up. The complication, he said, and his amber eyes were doing the thing, the open, unmanaged thing. I mean this one. He indicated the table again, the space between them. I'm not trying to resolve it by hiring you. I want to be clear about that. She looked at him. I know, she said softly. And she did. That was exactly the problem. She said yes on Thursday. Not Friday. She'd given herself until Friday and used until Thursday, which told her something she chose not to examine too closely. She sent the email at 11 p.m., professional and precise, outlining her terms, her timeline, her process. She CC'd his project manager. She used her full business signature. She did not mention the coffee shop. He replied at 11:07 p.m. Terms accepted. All of them. She looked at the reply for a long moment. 11 minutes. It was almost midnight and he had replied in 11 minutes, which meant he had been awake and near his phone, which meant something she was going to file and not look at directly. She closed her laptop. She went to bed. She did not sleep particularly well. The project was a full headquarters renovation, a 6-story building in the Flatiron district that Rafferty's company had acquired 18 months ago and had been slowly, expensively, getting wrong. The previous architect had treated it like a statement piece, designing for the portfolio photograph rather than the people who would spend 40 hours a week inside it. Nova walked through it on Monday morning and understood within the first 20 minutes why it felt wrong. The atrium, she said, standing in the center of it, looking up at the glass ceiling 6 stories above. Rafferty was beside her. His project manager, a compact, efficient woman named Lena, was behind them with a clipboard. What about it? Rafferty said. It's too open, Nova said. The proportions are impressive on paper, but they don't serve the people working here. It creates noise problems on every floor. It makes the offices feel exposed rather than connected. She turned slowly, reading the space the way she always read spaces, not looking at what was there but listening for what it was trying to be. You wanted a building that felt like a community.
If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more amazing love stories. Alright, back to the story.
This one feels like an audience. Rafferty was quiet. That's exactly what's wrong with it, he said. She looked at him. You already knew. I knew something was wrong, he said. I didn't have the language for it. She turned back to the atrium. I can fix it, she said. It'll require restructuring the open floors and rethinking the communal spaces entirely. But the bones, she looked up at the glass ceiling, at the light coming through it, at the structural columns that the previous architect had tried to hide and which were, in fact, the most beautiful thing in the building. The bones are extraordinary. Someone built this to last. 1923, Rafferty said. Original construction. It knows what it is, she said. We just need to stop arguing with it. She felt him looking at her. She kept her eyes on the ceiling. They fell into a rhythm the way people fall into rhythms when they are both, by nature, people who work, without discussing it, without engineering it, just through the natural gravity of two people occupying the same project space with compatible frequencies. She was on site 3 days a week. He was there, usually in the mornings, not hovering, never hovering, but present in the way of someone who had decided the building deserved his attention and had coincidentally arrived at the same time she had. They would walk the floors together. She would explain what she was thinking. He would ask the questions that showed he was following, not performing understanding, actually following, and occasionally offer a perspective from the occupant side that adjusted her thinking in ways she incorporated without making a production of incorporating. It was, professionally speaking, the best working relationship she'd had since before Dominic. This was not useful information. The details accumulated the way details do when you're paying the kind of attention she was trying not to pay. He took his coffee black but held the cup in both hands, which was a small, private gesture that didn't match the rest of his presentation. She noticed it on the third site visit and filed it under things that are none of your business and continued noticing it every time. He had a habit, when he was thinking hard about something, of going very still, not tense, just still, the way deep water is still, and then coming back with something that made you realize the stillness had been the thought, not the absence of it. He remembered things. Not performatively, he didn't reference them for effect. They would be 3 weeks into the project and he would say something that incorporated a detail she'd mentioned once in passing, and she would understand that he had simply retained it, the way you retain things that matter to you. She mentioned this to him once, sideways. You remember everything I say, she said. They were on the 4th floor, reviewing the communal space redesign, late on a Wednesday afternoon when the building had emptied and it was just the two of them and the bones. Not everything, he said. Not denying the observation, qualifying it. What don't you remember? She said. He looked at her. The amber eyes in the late afternoon light of the 4th floor were the color of something genuinely warm. Nothing you've said yet, he said. She turned back to the drawings. She allowed herself exactly 5 seconds of feeling what she felt about that. 5 seconds. Then she went back to work. 3 weeks in, he brought her coffee. Not from the office machine, from the place on 23rd she'd mentioned, once, in the context of something else entirely, the good one with the brown sugar syrup that she described as the only thing that made early site visits survivable. He set it on the makeshift desk she'd established on the 3rd floor. A folding table, her drawings spread across it, her tablet propped against a paint sample board, without announcing it. Just set it there and moved to look at the structural drawings on the wall. She looked at the cup. Then at him. He was looking at the drawings. Rafferty, she said. The northeast wall, he said, point. You're taking it back further than the original plan. The original plan was wrong, she said. The northeast wall needs to breathe. If you keep it where the previous architect put it, you lose the light relationship between floors 3 and 4 and the whole. She stopped. You got me coffee from 23rd. You mentioned it, he said. Still looking at the drawings. I mentioned it 3 weeks ago, she said. In passing. I know, he said. The northeast wall. She looked at the cup, at the logo, at the brown sugar syrup she hadn't asked for and he'd ordered correctly. She picked it up. The northeast wall needs to come back 14 inches, she said. It opens the light corridor and gives you the connection between floors you keep saying you want. Done, he said. You didn't look at the drawings. I trust your read, he said. Simply, like it was obvious. She held the coffee cup in both hands and looked at the northeast wall and thought about a man who had kept a logistics company's founder's name on the door because it was part of the structure, and who remembered coffee orders from 3-week-old conversations, and who said I trust your read without a single qualifier. You are in trouble, she told herself. I know, she answered. Priya appeared on a Thursday evening, uninvited, with wine and the expression of someone who had been waiting at a respectable distance and had reached the limit of respectable. She sat on Nova's couch and looked at her best friend with the focused attention of someone performing a diagnostic. You're different, Priya said. I'm the same, Nova said. You're lighter, Priya said. You've been lighter for 3 weeks and I've been watching it happen from a polite distance and I am no longer being polite. She poured the wine. Tell me. Nova sat in the armchair across from her. She was in an oversized cream sweatshirt and dark leggings, her coils fully loose and unstyled. The private version, the home version, the version that didn't perform for anyone. She thought about how to say it. He remembers things, she said. Everything I say. Not to impress me, just because he listened. She paused. He got me coffee from the right place based on something I said 3 weeks ago. He changed a 14-inch wall decision because I told him to without asking me to justify it. Priya was quiet. And, she said softly, and I told him about the Hudson house, Nova said. The one with the east kitchen window. The ceiling for the children. She paused. He said it was the project that showed what I was made of. Nova. I know. That man is. I know, Nova said again. That's the problem. Priya looked at her. Not with the vindicated energy of someone who had been right, with the careful warmth of someone who knew the specific shape of what her best friend was carrying. What are you afraid of? She said. Nova looked at her wine glass. That it's the same shape, she said quietly, as before. Someone certain. Someone competent. Someone who makes me feel like the work I do is seen. She paused. And that somewhere in the middle of it, I'll look up and realize I've built myself into his structure instead of my own. Priya was quiet for a long moment. Is he like Dominic? She said. Carefully. Nova thought about it. Genuinely. She thought about Rafferty saying I trust your read without qualification. About the logistics company's name on the door. About the stillness that was the thought, not the absence of it. She thought about Dominic, who had listened selectively and remembered strategically and said I trust you in the specific way that meant I trust you to agree with me. No, she said. The word arrived with a certainty that surprised her. Then what are you doing? Priya said gently. Nova looked at the ceiling. Being careful, she said. There's a difference, Priya said, between careful and stopped. Nova looked at her. I know, she said for the 3rd time. But this time it landed differently. This time it felt less like a defense and more like the beginning of something loosening. The moment that shifted the axis of the whole thing happened on a Friday afternoon, 5 weeks into the project. They were alone on the 6th floor, the top floor, the one she'd redesigned most dramatically, the one that had been a boardroom and was now going to be a combination of collaborative space and a narrow terrace garden she'd fought for in 3 separate meetings and finally won. The light on the 6th floor at 5 p.m. on a Friday in late spring was extraordinary. It came through the original 1923 windows at an angle that the building's architects had clearly intended and every subsequent renovation had ignored, and it fell across the raw concrete floor in long gold panels that made the whole space feel like something in the middle of becoming. She was standing in it. Not working, just standing, feeling the space the way she always felt spaces when the workers had gone and she could hear what the building was actually saying. She heard him behind her. You do this every time, he said. From the doorway. Do what? She said. Not turning. Stand in the space and listen to it, he said. When you think no one's watching. She turned. He was leaning against the doorframe. Dark charcoal trousers, soft white shirt, sleeves rolled up, the end of a Friday, the armor at its most relaxed. His dark hair slightly unsettled. His amber eyes in the extraordinary sixth-floor light were the warmest she'd seen them. "I'm reading it," she said. "I know," he said. "What's it saying?" She looked around the space. "At the windows. At the light. That it's been waiting a long time," she said. "To be used correctly." He was quiet. She felt the sentence settle between them and understood, with the architectural clarity she brought to everything, that she hadn't been talking only about the building. He had understood too. She could see it in the amber eyes, the open, unmanaged thing, present and unhurried, not retreating. He pushed off the doorframe, crossed the floor toward her, not fast, not urgent, just the deliberate movement of a man who had decided something and was acting on it without theater. He stopped close. Not too close, but close enough that the space between them was a decision. "Nova," he said. "Don't," she said softly. "Not yet." He looked at her. She started. "I need to finish this floor before she stopped. "I can't think about both things at the same time." He held her gaze. "Okay," he said. Not pushed. Not managed away. Just accepted. The way he held everything she gave him. "When the floor is done," she said. "When the floor is done," he agreed. He stepped back. She turned back to the window. The last of the Friday light came through the 1923 glass and fell across the floor between them, and neither of them moved for a long moment, and the building held them both in its extraordinary, patient, almost becoming quiet. Lovely viewers. Some people make you want to stop being careful. Not because they ask you to, but because the careful starts to feel like less than what's possible. Has someone ever made you feel that? Tell me.